Wight County School Board's in session. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Colick, Mr. Cunningham,
Present.
Mrs. Perkins,
Here.
Mr. Wooster,
Here.
and Mr. Marsh.
Here.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda for closed session as presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Cunningham,
Yay.
Mrs. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Wooster,
Yes.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the agenda for open session as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Cunningham,
Yay.
Mrs. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Wooster,
Yes.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes. Motion passes.
Mr. Chair, I move to go into closed session to review the personnel report posted on board docs under Personnel tab number 18.1 as authorized by Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1 for purposes of discussion and consideration of prospective candidates of Isle of Wight Public Schools for employment, contract changes, transfers, salary adjustments, supplemental contracts, deletions, supplemental pay, resignations of Isle of Wight County Public Schools.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Cunningham,
Yay.
Mrs. Perkins,
Yes.
Mr. Wooster,
Yes.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak in closed session?
No, sir.
Okay, on that, we will step into closed session. The Wight County School Board's in session.
Mr. Chair, I move that the closed meeting was conducted in conformity with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act as required by Section 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia, and certify that only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements were discussed, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yay.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. Over to you, sir.
Would everyone please stand for a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be seated.
Well, good evening. It's December 12th, 2024. This is the Wight County School Board's last regular meeting for the year. We're in Westside Elementary School, and we'll just get right into it, and we'll go to Isle of Wight Achievers. Mrs. Briggs.
Good evening. The vision for Isle of Wight County Schools is to create a learning environment that will enable every child to discover his or her unique gifts and talents. The Isle of Wight Achievers section of our board meeting gives us an opportunity to recognize and celebrate our staff and students for their unique talents and gifts. Tonight, we are recognizing some athletics, and we're going to start at Windsor High School. When I call your name, if you will please come forward, and you are going to get a pin from Dr. Coleman, and you're going to stand in front facing the board so they can see you as we read all these wonderful accolades about why you're being recognized. So Windsor High had 2 cross-country runners qualify for the state championship held in November. Elizabeth Caudle finished 4th in the regional tournament. You stay right there, and you stay there until we get everybody up here. She also earned first team Tri-Rivers District Honors. Zach Sharp qualified for the state tournament, and he also earned first team Tri-Rivers District Honors. The boys team was the Tri-Rivers regular season and district tournament champions, while the girls team was the tournament runner-up. The coach for the girls team is Kara Haltewanger, and the boys team is coached by John Rubio. Coach Rubio was also selected as the Tri-Rivers Coach of the Year. As soon as we get Coach Rubio up here. Oh, and Ms. Haltewanger. You can join the students in the front. And we want to congratulate the cross-country runners on having a wonderful season and qualifying for state. That is wonderful. Congratulations very much, and we'll have you come over here for a photo. All right. So Mr. Elliott's going to get you all lined up. And we also want to thank Mr. Gaddis for being here. He is the athletic director at Windsor High, and he is out here to support his athletes. Very good. Congratulations. Good season. Very good. All right. Dr. Coleman, I'm going to ask you to help me out a minute so I don't have to turn around. Do we have any representatives from the Smithville High School volleyball team with us tonight. If you are, raise your hand. If you were Smithville High volleyball. Do not see any. Okay. All right. I think there was a little mix-up in some communication. We're going to invite them to come in January, but they qualify for the state tournament as well. So we definitely want to include them in our recognitions. So we are going to move along, still with Smithville High School, to cross country. I know they're here. And if you will allow me to read a little bit about the cross country teams. This is the first time in the 40-plus year school history that Smithville Packers girls and boys varsity cross-country teams have both qualified for the VHSL state championship in the same season. At the Regional 4A Championship qualifier held at Windsor Castle Park, the boys team finished in second place, while the girls team finished in third. This is the second year in a row the Packers ladies cross-country team has qualified for the state meet. This year's girls cross-country team boasts the fastest average time in school history. This is the first time since 2019 that the boys cross-country team has advanced as a team. The boys team's runner-up finish at this year's regional championship is the highest that Smithville High has ever finished in Class 4. Both teams are coached by Steve Shepard, head coach, and Coach Shepard's going to come up, and assistant coach Eric Berge. And now we want to recognize the students. So the Packer boys are Ethan Caggiano, Brennan Thompson, Cooper West, Ewan Kucha, captain, Noah Owens, Maximo Duffy, captain, Rowan Black, Nate Miller, Zachary Kennedy, Logan Greer, and Caleb Greer. And as Caleb and Logan get into place there, I'm going to announce that Caleb and Logan, who are twins, led the team, finishing 7th and 10th in the boys' varsity division regionals. So I think what we'll do, since we have such a big group of boys here, let's go ahead and get all of you guys over here to the backdrop, and we'll get a picture of the boys' team with the coach. And then we'll have Coach Shepard stay up here, and we'll bring the girls up as well. Okay? Very good. Don't move till all the family members are done. Very good. Now you can move. All right. So now let's introduce the girls. We have Evelyn Porter, Ashlyn White, Rachel Morgan, Kylie Engstrom, Yasmin Fan, Caitlin Senna, who is also a captain, Cadence DeStefano, who's also a captain, Grace Dodson, Onika Aridi, Emma Hattimer, Juliana Jones, Madeline Berry, who's also a captain, and is Madeline with us? Madeline's not here. All right, but let me shout out Madeline a minute. Madeline finished in second place overall in the varsity division and regionals, and she is wrapping up her high school cross-country career as a 4-time state qualifier for Smithfield and holds the all-time record at the school in the sport. So we congratulate Madeline and the rest of the Packer girls cross-country team. Congratulations, and we'll have you come over here for a photo. You go to the backdrop, just walk right over to the backdrop. Mr. Elliott's going to get you all lined up. Thank you, Coach Shepard. Is Cadence here? Okay, that's good. Making sure. And make sure all the parents have had a chance to get their photos. Are we good, parents? All good? All right. Congratulations. Nice season. So now we're going to move to our seniors of the month. Oh, very good. Another round of applause. Very good. All right. Now we're moving to our seniors of the month. The senior of the month for December from Windsor High is Cassidy Tess Blau. She's here with us. Yay. Tess stands out as an exceptional individual, seamlessly blending academic excellence, leadership, athletic dedication, and community involvement. Ranked 4th in her class, she is pursuing both an advanced diploma, and an associate degree, reflecting her commitment to academic rigor. As an AP scholar and the recipient of the principal's list, Tess consistently excels in her studies while maintaining numerous leadership roles. Her extensive extracurricular involvement includes serving as senior class president, junior class vice president, and contributing to the Student Advisory Board and Rigor Committee, where she advocates for meaningful educational change and represents her peers effectively. Tess is also deeply dedicated to athletics, balancing demanding commitments in cheerleading, gymnastics, and tennis. Her work ethic shines through her role as a gymnastics coach and lifeguard, demonstrating her ability to mentor others while pursuing her goals. Tess's volunteer efforts further underscore her selflessness and commitment to her community. She has raised over $70,000 for church renovations, supported families in need, and provided tutoring for students, showcasing her passion for service. This senior's diverse accomplishments, strong leadership, and unwavering dedication to academic and extracurricular excellence make her truly exceptional and deserving of recognition. Quote, Tess leads with integrity, kindness, and a genuine desire to make a difference, inspiring those around her and setting a great example for others to follow. And that's from Mrs. Dawn Carroll, Windsor High's principal. Tess plans on attending the University of Virginia and studying microbiology. Congratulations, Tess. Very good. We're going to have you walk over to the backdrop. And if you have family, they're welcome to come up and get a photo and join you in the photo. Mr. Elliott will coordinate all of that for us.
Mrs. Briggs, I want to make sure I heard you right. Tess is going to graduate with an associate's degree.
Associate degree, Tess?
That's outstanding.
Yes. That's wonderful. Congratulations once again, Tess. Now, our senior of the month for December from Smithville High School is Jaylee Anderson. Yay, Jaylee. Jaylee is a well-rounded and accomplished student at Smithville High School. She currently serves as the president of the Student Cooperative Association, or SCA, modeling exceptional citizenship both within the school and in the broader community. Jaylee stands out among her peers for her kindness, compassion, and empathy. Always wearing a smile, she has a positive attitude and never speaks negatively about others. She is dependable and rises to any challenge, going above and beyond to ensure tasks are completed. Her leadership inspires her classmates to be their best and encourages them to take an active role in school life. As a math tutor, Jaylee uses her Packer block time to help students improve their math skills, demonstrating her commitment to their success. In her role as vice president of the Library Advisory Club, Jaylee works to create inclusive activities for all students at Smithville High. Through her involvement with the Leo Club, she extends her mentorship beyond the school walls, helping the club raise funds for hurricane relief and supplies for the Isle of Wight Animal Shelter. As a spirited leader, Jaylee spearheads events that enhance school culture, such as organizing spirit activities for football and basketball games, planning bonfire events, and coordinating the homecoming dance. Jaylee's influence also extends into her community and the school division. She babysits for families in her neighborhood and actively participates as a member of the Student Advisory Board. In this role, she collaborates with Dr. Kramer and other students to improve Isle of Wight County Schools for both students and staff. Jaylee Anderson is a true role model whose exceptional character and leadership make a lasting impact at Smithville High School and beyond. Quote, Jaylee has demonstrated collaborative leadership as the president of the SCA. She was instrumental in SHS having a successful homecoming weekend. She balances the demands of schoolwork, extracurricular activities, and personal life well. And that's from Mr. Dan Elmore, a history teacher. Jaylee plans to attend the Holt International Business School in London and major in international business. Congratulations, Jaylee. Well done. And we're going to have you go over to the backdrop now. And family, this is the time for you to come up, get a photo of Jaylee, and join her for the photo. Our kids have global aspirations. I just love it. Smithfield to London. That's great. Very good. Well, congratulations once again, Jaylee. Nicely done. Okay. Our final honoree is our ABCD Award. Each quarter, we recognize one of our support staff members who has gone above and beyond the call of duty. Anyone throughout the division is invited to submit nominations. A panel reviews the nominees and selects the quarterly winners. Our 2024-2025 second quarter ABCD Award winner is Chad Cutchin, bus driver for Windsor Elementary School, Georgia Tyler Middle School, and Windsor High School. Yay! The nomination for Chad states, and he's going to stand here while I read all this wonderful stuff. Mr. Chad Cutchin is a dedicated bus driver for Windsor Elementary School. He consistently demonstrates outstanding leadership by proactively troubleshooting transportation issues before they impact our students. He is always ahead of the curve, ensuring the smooth operation of bus routes and making sure our students are safe and punctual. His problem-solving skills and willingness to collaborate with others, including school staff and transportation services, have significantly improved the efficiency of our transportation system. Mr. Cutchin is an exemplary ambassador for Windsor Elementary, always exhibiting professionalism and care in his interactions with students, parents, and colleagues. Beyond his duties, he fosters a strong connection between the school and home, building trust and support that enhances the well-being of students. His humanitarian spirit extends to his constant availability, willingness to help in times of need, and dedication to creating a positive and safe environment for all students. Whether it's addressing a last-minute scheduling issue or ensuring every child feels valued, Mr. Cutchin's contributions are a cornerstone of the school's success, and he truly embodies the spirit of service. As part of his award, Mr. Cutchin is receiving a $50 Visa gift card. Did Dr. Coleman hand that to you? Just making sure. Okay, I made sure. Just making sure I didn't see it. Thanks to the generous support of the Women's Club of Smithfield. Just kidding, Dr. Coleman, you know that. He is also receiving a personalized plaque created in the Smithfield High School Makerspace. Congratulations, Mr. Cutchin. Nicely done. Nicely done. I'll have you go over there for a photo. I'll take it back. And while he's getting his photo done, I'll let you know that's going to conclude Isle of Wight Achievers for December and for 2024. Congratulations to all of those that were honored, and thank you to the family and friends who came out to support them.
Thanks, Ms. Briggs.
Good evening, Chair Marsh, board members, and Dr. Kramer. A couple months ago, our chorus program, under the direction of Miss Gardner, was honored to receive the Peter R. Marsh Foundation Middle School Grant in the amount of $1,250.
The purpose of this grant is to create remarkable opportunities to help inspire students to grow musically, scholastically, and socially. Additionally, the grant was to help support the acquisition of students through music classroom equipment and supplies.
A unique aspect of this program is its emphasis on fostering connections between young people and senior citizens through music. With this in mind, we have organized performances at 3 different venues. Earlier this year, we hosted a veterans social and performed in our school's courtyard to honor our nation's veterans.
But these performances are about more than just singing. They're opportunities to engage in social interaction with members of our community who have more life experience. After each event, we take time to reflect on these interactions by writing about what we've learned. For example, after the Veterans Social.
Just last week, we visited an assisted living community in Smithfield, where we performed and sang alongside the residents. In a few months, we'll travel to a larger facility in Hampton Roads to connect with and perform for another group of seniors.
Most of my daily interactions are with peers my age. These experiences have given me a chance to connect with people from another generation, which has strengthened my communication skills, deepened my empathy, and expanded my awareness.
Thanks to the Peter R. Marsh Foundation, this grant will allow us to purchase ear training devices for our classrooms and update our current inventory of song selections. We are incredibly grateful for opportunities like this to help us learn and grow through music. Do you have any questions for us?
Years ago, when I was active duty, my supervisor told me, he said, "Marsh, what are you doing Saturday?" I said, "Nothing, Chief." He goes, "That's not correct." He goes, "Saturday, you're going to go to the assisted living facility, and you're going to go hang out with some old people and talk to them." And it was on Veterans Day. And I'll be honest with you, I was a nervous wreck. I didn't really want to do it. But to this day, it was one of the most rewarding things I've ever done. So my question is, did you have any personal reflections after doing that? Any takeaways? Or there's really no wrong answer. I'm just curious. For me, it was a big deal.
There was a guy who sang for us there, one of the veterans. One of the people there, he sang for us and sang a Christmas carol for us, so it was very sweet of him.
It's pretty cool. It's pretty neat you guys did that. Congratulations and well done. Thanks again. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
Yes, sir. In accordance to policy BDDH-E, presentation of information on any subject will be concluded at the discretion of the board. No person will be recognized to speak more than once. Citizens scheduled on the agenda to speak will be permitted 4 minutes maximum time for their presentation. Delegations will be requested to limit their speakers to 2. Persons speaking are asked to be specific, state the issues for the board's consideration, and attach a copy of your prepared remarks. If you have prepared remarks, they should be given to the board clerk. Please do not approach the board members. Any matter relating to specific students will be heard by the school board only in closed meeting. Candy Muhammad. And that was it.
All right. Well, that moves us to 14.1, student liaisons. Cameron, you want to go first? Ladies first?
So this month, Smithfield High School hosted the ASVAB, or the Armed Service Vocational Battery Test. It was ran by our school's tester coordinator, Mrs. Pro, and it took place yesterday on the 11th. From what I've heard from people, there were around like 50 to 60 people in each room, and with 3 rooms of testing, that leaves for around 150 to 180 people who took the test. While we don't yet know what the scores look like, we do know that higher ASVAB scores can allow students to access a wider range of military career opportunities and potentially higher enlistment ranks. Additionally, this month at the last Isle of Wight County Schools, our school's Health Occupational Students of America chapter, or HOSA chapter, ran 3 different fundraisers. The first was a raffle on our November 22nd football game. The second was at the Smithfield Farmers Market when they sold items. And the third took place, it's Monday, and it was a Dine With Us at Q Daddy's. All of the proceeds from all 3 of these fundraisers are going to help HOSA students attend a conference and compete in medical competitions. Some other things going on at Smithfield this month are the Winter Spirit Week and our Poetry Slam. Beginning on December 16th and ending on the 19th, our Student Council Association came up with a set of spirit days. Monday the 16th is going to be Ugly Sweater Day. Tuesday the 17th is going to be Winter Character Day. Wednesday the 18th is Onesie or Flannel Day. And Thursday the 19th is Class Colors, where freshmen wear silver, sophomores gold, juniors green, and seniors red. The other event that I mentioned, the Poetry Slam, is going to take place on the 17th, the same day as the Winter Character Day. It's taking place in the library, and basically you just come and maybe you read a poem or song lyrics, anything of your choice, and the sign-up sheets are in the library. And also the Green Club is starting a no-cost thrift shop. That's another thing that I have on there.
Thanks, Cameron. Did I hear you say it was a onesie day?
Yes.
There's got to be a lot of opportunities to take pictures at that.
Do you need any participation from board members on that day?
No. I may have a onesie. I'm not that big of a guy. Over to you, Connor.
All right. So our Beta Club had a blood drive last Friday that was very successful. Actually, we got the remind message today that we went over our goal, so that was very exciting to hear. Our theater team is going to States. We leave tomorrow to go up to Charlottesville. And then during second block, which is from 9:10 to 10:38, we are performing twice. So we would love to see the board members or any central office to come and see our show. We're pretty proud of it. The school computers, they're still blocking a lot, and most of them don't make a lot of sense. So I would love to invite them to one of our student advisory meetings and find a solution, or so they can tell us like how to fix it or why they can't fix it. And then the restoration on our track has started this week. I think it was Tuesday. We saw bulldozers and we started to see them at least dig up the track, so when the temperatures meet the standards, they can just start immediately. And then lastly, our show for theater is January 18th, and we are performing Beetlejuice.
And who is going to be Beetlejuice?
I will be Beetlejuice.
Can you give us a taste?
It's showtime.
Thank you. Dr. Kramer?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, if I may respond. Thank you both, Cameron and Connor, for those excellent updates. We learned a lot about both your schools. Wanted to respond to Connor for a second. Thank you for bringing that to our attention regarding the computers and the access. So I will make certain that, as you mentioned, I think we have a January student advisory meeting. So we'll make certain that that is on the agenda for discussion. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Anything else? Appreciate you. All right, well, moving right along. 15.1 is our first action item for the night. It's substitute rate amendment, Mrs. Sullivan.
Good evening. Yes, attached to the presentation is a rate amendment for our substitute services. We contract with ESS to provide substitutes for our school division. And with that, they have a bill rate and a pay rate. The bill rate is what we pay, which includes the administrative fee services that the company provides us by being the human resources for those substitutes, hiring, maintaining them, and the payroll and the finance for that as well. And so, as you may already know, the minimum wage is increasing as of January 1, 2025. And to stay in compliance of the minimum wage for our lowest base rate sub, for their pay rate, we need to increase their daily rate by $5 in order to remain in compliance so that they will continue to meet the minimum wage. Of course, ideally, part of our budget conversation for going into next year is to review and increase sub rates across the board. We are one of the lowest paying divisions in our regions for subs. And so we want to look at that because it does make it difficult to fill those jobs when you're competing with the other localities. But for this temporary period of time, we just need to increase the base rate, which is those individuals subbing with a high school diploma. That is our minimum requirement for substitutes, and so their rate has to increase by 5. It still keeps a differential between them and the next step up, so that still exists. So those with bachelor's degrees will still be, or associate degrees will still be making more than the high school diploma holding substitutes. And then looking at our budget projections with the number of people that we have with a high school diploma only subbing within our buildings, we are looking at a $2,700 increase in the totality of our budget for the remainder of the year. So it's not, it doesn't have a negative budget implication that would affect our overall budget.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions or comments? Okay. Someone will be willing to entertain a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the amended substitute rates as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other comments? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, Ms. Sullivan. Takes us to 15.2. So next action item, Ms. Riveri.
Good evening. Per the school board policy DJA, which is the purchasing authority, the superintendent, with of course the school board's formal approval, may designate an individual to serve as the purchasing agent. In July of 22, the school board appointed Mr. Todd Christensen as a purchasing agent. And what we are recommending here today is that the school board approve a position instead of a specific employee, and the person we're recommending or the position is the chief financial officer. So the motion is to approve the chief financial officer as the purchasing agent for Isle of Wight County Schools.
Thank you, ma'am. Any comments?
It's housekeeping.
Yes, ma'am. Concur. And if I recall, when this went into place, we didn't have a CFO on staff, right?
I think that's correct.
There was a little turmoil going on.
I think that's correct.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the chief financial officer as the purchasing agent for Isle of Wight County Schools.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, ma'am. And we're moving right along. 15.3, surplus technology, Mr. Cooprider.
Good evening, Chair, Board, Dr. Karen Kramer. This is a request by the Technology Department to do our yearly surplus sale of items deemed no longer viable for use.
Got it. Any comments, questions? More housekeeping?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the request to sell surplus items with data destruction guarantee as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster,
Yes.
and Mr. Marsh.
Yes, motion passes. And right back at you, sir. 15-4, technology device purchase.
Yes, sir. This is for a request to purchase the student Chromebooks for next year. This is in the amount of $322,800.
So, Mr. Cooperrider, you and I already shared some information, or you shared some information with me, but for the listening audience and anyone else, tell us a little bit about the VPSA grant, sir, if you would.
Yes, sir. It is a grant provided by the state. It is based on the number of schools and a school division, and it comes to a total for Wight County of $284,000. Last year, we did not expend any of it, but it is a rolling grant, so if you don't use it, you keep it. We used last year's money to buy this year's devices, and then we're using this year's money to buy next year's devices.
Got it. And this was all budgeted for?
I believe that Ms. DeVaria is bringing a budget amendment for the grant. The local money was budgeted for. The grant money, I believe, was not.
Right. So that's the next agenda item. Right.
Yes.
Okay. Anybody? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, I move to allow the purchase of student Chromebooks for the 2025-2026 school year as presented, pending appropriation by the Board of Supervisors.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh.
Yes, motion passes.
Thank you.
Hello again. As Mr. Cooperrider stated, we did not use the grant in fiscal year 24, and although we budgeted the local match piece twice, the grant amount was not. We only budgeted for one grant amount. So accordingly, we need to request an additional appropriation from the county in the amount of $284,000. But this is solely, so that we can spend the grant funds.
Can you speak to the local match portion of this scenario?
The local match, it requires a 20% match, and that was included in the budget. But on the grant side, we only included one amount of the grants, just one $284,000 amount where we should have included two.
I guess the point of my question is, are we surprising the county by asking for this local match?
No, because that's already in. We're not asking the county for any additional funding because that was already included in our budget that they adopted. This is merely needing an additional appropriation so we can spend the grant funds.
Understood. That's what I was looking for. Thank you for clearing that up. Anyone else? All right.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the request to increase the fiscal year 2024-2025 budget by $284,000 due to increased funding.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you, ma'am. Next item is 16.1, the greenhouse projects.
There it is. All right. Good evening, Chair Marsh, school board members, Dr. Kramer, and all in attendance this evening. Ms. Outline and I are here tonight to provide you with an update on the greenhouses that were donated to all the elementary schools earlier this year from AES. So a couple things we're going to go over real quick. We held a greenhouse ribbon cutting ceremony last week. I'm going to talk about the plans for each school, and then I'm going to let Ms. Outland talk about her kickoff event that she held back before Thanksgiving break. So last week we held a ribbon cutting ceremony at Hardy Elementary School. We had representatives there from AES, Central Office, Hardy, and we also had a community member in attendance as well, Mr. Greg Brown was there. Dr. Kramer, Tamara Slade from AES, and Hardy fourth grade student Mason Skinner all gave short speeches at the event as well. So I just want to thank also Mr. Cunningham for attending the event and being there, supporting us with the project as well. And then just some pictures from the event, the speakers, Ms. Briggs also leading the event. Thank you for organizing everything. And then of course cutting the ribbon, we had all the kids up there. They did not have the scissors, but the adults did. But I think they were excited just to be out there and be a part of the ceremony. Also, I want to thank Dr. Coleman. He worked with myself and the greenhouse leads at each school to get some funds, to get some materials to kickstart each school. So each school got some basic supplies, some potting soil, a little storage shed, some watering cans, a hose, some seed starter kits, just to get them up and running. So that they could get started with using these greenhouses. And you can see Hardy already has some planter boxes on the outside, so they're well started as well. So talking about the plans for each school, so Carrollton is working on a plan to incorporate their greenhouse into an outdoor classroom space, and they are working with a landscaping company to come up with those plans. So that's kind of the sketch that they have right now. And they are working on securing various grants to fund the project and working with different community partners to help fund that project as well. Still in the early stages, but that is their plan. And then once it's all set up and done, teachers will be able to go out and do various hands-on lessons that will correlate to math standards of learning, science standards of learning, English, and even some history standards of learning as well. Hardy Elementary, they are planning on having their teachers go out and have access to the greenhouse as well to support various SOLs, again with that hands-on learning. You can see they are already well on their way. They have some outside raised flower beds already with some plants in them. A parent, Mr. Greg Brown, has been very active in helping Hardy get things started with applying for a couple of grants. They've already received one grant from Agriculture in the Classroom, and so they've gotten some materials from that, and he has recently submitted another grant for both Hardy and Westside. So we're hopeful that we'll get those grants to be able to do more with our greenhouses. Windsor Elementary, environmental science teacher Danae Smith, she is planning on setting up some seed sets and hydroponics out in the greenhouse, and teachers will have the ability to sign up at various times that work best for them to go out and do some of those same hands-on learning experiences with their students. Westside, I'm not going to speak a whole lot to. You'll hear about their project in March for ION Instruction, but they are doing a combined effort with their ecology club and art classes and the beta club to spruce up a space. And so I don't want to let go of any secrets just yet, so you can look forward to their plans when they come in March. And now I'm going to let Ms. Outland talk about the kickoff event that she held for her greenhouse down at Carsville.
Good evening, Dr. Kramer, Chair, Vice Chair, school board members. Thank you, Ms. Rogers, for this opportunity. I get really excited about science. It's my wheelhouse. So, Dr. Coleman, when we heard greenhouses were coming, it was all hands on deck. Let's get them rolled out. We all know that hands-on learning is where it sticks with students, and science is a part of our strategic plan. So the greenhouse became a part of our strategic plan at Carsville. At Carsville, we are committed to creating and cultivating a collaborative community for student excellence. And with that being said, our goal this year is to partner with businesses, agencies in Isle of Wight County to extend the classroom learning. And when we kicked off our greenhouse opening date on November 20th, we partnered with the Peanut Soil and Water Conservation District, Miss Tara Williams, Courtney Coleman, and Austin Magruder were all on site the day that we kicked it off, as well as NRCS, which is another government agency, the Natural Resources Conservation Service, where Mr. Jake Browder came in and provided the bulk of the lessons to our students. And when I say our students pre-K through 5th grade. We're all hands on deck involved in planting the greenhouse. Throughout the lessons, we rotated students by grade levels within 30-minute increments. Those students pre-K through 2nd grade, we revisited the book, Logan's Greenhouse, which was a book that was shared last year for agriculture in the classroom. Each year there is an agriculture literature book that is shared in our schools. This was the one that was shared last year, very fitting to roll out our greenhouse. Our older students, we know that in 5th grade, we're looking for career planning because we want to get those wheels going already. So we brought in a lot about what careers could evolve from an activity such as this, from the agricultural field. Students in 4th and 5th planted bulbs, daffodils and tulips. I can't wait to see the red and white on campus in the spring. And then our younger students planted radishes, carrots, lettuce, all things that can go into a fresh garden salad this spring. So our hopes are to get it harvested. So when we're looking at rolling out the greenhouse, we want to look at the global aspect of it. How does it relate to our standards, of course, but how does it relate to real life? And if you're familiar with science standards, whether you're in kindergarten or 12th grade, K.1, 2.1, up to 12.1 is all about scientific investigations. That's taking that inquiry process and learning concepts, but then applying those concepts. So experimenting with life processes. So certainly it was tied to our SOLs. It's providing our students real world relevance. So it's great to know the parts of a plant. It's great to know what a plant needs to survive, but how can I apply that to real world? What is my connection to real world application? Greenhouse, convection, solar energy, trapped in. How does that, why do we have solar panels on school buildings? It's all related. So you want to make those connections there. And then, of course, our mission is to collaborate with our community partners. Hence, we reached out to those government agencies which have resources to fund programs like this in the schools. Those are free resources. So they come in and they share those. And then, of course, we want to create that productive citizen, that Isle of Wight County graduate profile, and embrace the 5 C's here in Virginia. So it's just full circle with the project itself. These are some pictures. We too have raised square foot gardens on our site. We had 3. That's the first picture. Mr. Browder showed students, spacing. They were planting bulbs in the square foot gardens. Then you'll see students who are actually carrying their trays of radishes or seeds that were planted going into the greenhouse. And then you see various partners who were on site assisting our students. So guess what? It germinated and it grew. So in our greenhouse, we currently have signs of lettuce, radish, carrots. They're all coming up. And I'm just going to tell you, 14 degrees last week was a true test to the greenhouses. And it's also a life lesson. What do farmers need to do with strawberries or things such as that when you hit that cold spurt? So bringing that in. Our next steps, certainly we're watering. We are monitoring the growth. We're going to have to transplant those seedlings that have sprouted into larger areas. Certainly we're going to make observations. We're going to harvest the crop for a fresh spring salad. And in the midst of planting the greenhouse, we had a large donation from the Franklin Lowe's of summer and spring seeds. So we've already got what we need to fill it up for the spring and summer. So it'll just be that cycle that continues. This just shows the greenhouse where we filled it up. It shows the plant growth there.
What questions do you have for us?
Were the planter boxes already there, or did you have those put in?
Our square foot gardens were there previously. And we too actually have an area that we're going to turn into a learning pavilion. Previously, Boy Scouts came in and built a natural learning area. We'd like to have a covered learning pavilion there as well. So we're just building that one area. If you're facing Carsville, our greenhouse is to the right, beside our learning cottage, but on this side of the fence. And the square foot gardens are on that side as well.
And you pulled Nansman Lawn and Garden into that?
No, that would have been Carrollton. I saw that Nansman, Mr. Mansfield with Nansman Lawn and Garden. That's a big contractor going into Carrollton.
Well, maybe I'll call Blake and see if he can hook a couple other schools up.
Yep. There are a lot of grants. I know Mr. Rogers mentioned the ag in the classroom. There are a lot of opportunities to build and grow and to support the greenhouse with little funding that would have to take place through the district. So there are a lot of opportunities out there.
For sure, especially in Isle of Wight.
Absolutely.
Surrounded by farmers and so.
Yep.
Yeah, I got some ideas.
Awesome. Come on out to Carsville. We'll take them.
I bet you will. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Just out of curiosity, what size are the greenhouses?
Dr. Coleman?
While he's coming up, there's actually one, Mr. Wooster, there's one out back if you want to see it.
Okay. I was just curious, having experience with greenhouses myself, I can tell you for a fact, looking at it, I'm guessing it's bigger than what I was using, but I had a 6 foot by 8 foot greenhouse, and I had 500 plants growing in there at any given time.
Absolutely.
So I'm pretty sure that you can fit a lot in there.
Yeah. It does. And I would say it's at least as long as the table, if not
9 by 14.
Yeah.
9 by 14?
Yes, sir.
1,500 to 2,000 plants is what I'm guessing.
Yep.
We've got to jump on it.
Yep. Got work to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, ladies. All right, fun stuff's over. Let's get into the finances, ma'am.
Finances can be fun too.
If you're a CFO.
Okay, a couple things to go over with you this evening. First, the monthly financial reports. I do want to point out that per your previous request, I have added on the financial report where a budget amendment has been done. So I've added it like right under whichever fund you're looking at. So like at the top of the second page of the financials is the construction fund or the CIP projects. And you'll see under there that I've noted that the budget has been amended by $265,553. It was about $22,000 of that is actually a carryover of the county contribution from this past fiscal year, 24. But the balance of $242,978 has actually been on our books since back to 2019. And it is remaining funds that were left over from a donation that we had received back in 2018, 2019. So we will now put those funds to good use. The textbook fund has been amended, and of course, you approved all these amendments previously. The health insurance fund, if you will recall, last month I mentioned that the expenses through the month of October as compared to the same time frame last year, expenses were up about 40%. So the good news is that through November, the claims have kind of slowed, but we are still, claims have still have increased 35% of the budget. The other thing to point out is that right now, just through November, we're at about 50% of our budget. So that's where the concern will comes into play, and of course I'll be monitoring it closely.
So when do you start getting concerned, ma'am?
February?
I mean, I don't know. I mean,
yeah, we'll be including, some projections with the budget, I would imagine. I certainly believe that we had no increases in rates for the employees. I would think that in this upcoming budget year, we likely are going to need some increases in the rates.
And so the goal is to keep somewhere in the ballpark of, was it?
The goal was $2 million.
$2 million was the goal. I think last year we had short of a $1 million, right? It was like 900,000.
We have 1.3 is what we ended the year with.
So that's our cushion, essentially.
Yes, but if I project out right now, just based on the numbers through November, it could be as high as $2 million.
So let's just say worst case scenario, we keep going in the trend we're going. We get to the end of the fiscal year and we've expended our cushion. Mm-hmm. So what? What do we do?
We are going to have to transfer funds from the general fund.
Okay, so I guess we'll just keep an eye on it and keep us posted. And
yes, sir.
any comments from anybody else?
And then I have, I've added I've got a PowerPoint.
Before we, I'm sorry, before you go on, the notes for the amendments, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
I appreciate you adding those on there. I think that's going to pay dividends when we start looking at the budget as we move forward. You're going to keep those on there as a cumulative list?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, ma'am.
I did a presentation. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see it, but I've revised the grant fund report. Previously the report that you received merely reflected the award amount and where we were, the status of the reimbursement request. But I thought you might find it more helpful or useful to see all of our grants individual, and then the report is structured similar to the other reports, whereas there's a revised budget column, then I have the current month expenditures followed by the year-to-date encumbered funds, and then of course a budget balance. The reimbursement requests in the far right, I'm showing them as we receive the reimbursement request is when I'm putting it there. Then I guess we'll get to, let me show you. So right now I have them sorted. This is the federal grants. And then here I have the next section are state grants. And if you look over on the far right next to reimbursement requests, you see like a little asterisk. And what I've done there is we've already received those funds. So we received these in the prior year. So it was actually about $2.4 million that we received. We've already been advanced and we received. So that's why I have that noted, because you'll say, well, we've already received more than we've spent. Well, because we did receive it in advance. And then the last section is, I have it noted as other and local grants. But I thought you would find it helpful to see that we have over $7.5 million in grants that we are spending this year.
Mr. Very, I like this. For me, this works. I can't speak for nobody else.
And then also at the bottom, I have a summary of how the grant funds, this budget has been amended. And that's where you're normally going to see the most amendments is with the grant funds.
I think just for the sake of clarity and talking this through out loud, the column for reimbursement requests, that's on there because that was an issue for our last cycle.
Yes.
So I guess simply put, there were a lot of reimbursements that were never submitted. So in an ideal world, as I understand it, everything that's grants, you have to request that reimbursement.
Yes, sir. The majority of the funds are.
Otherwise, you get beat up on the audit.
Yes.
You're not keeping your book straight. So,
on our federal grants, I also want to point out two of the largest awards, which are Title I and IDEA. You'll note that we have spent, a considerable amount of money so far this year, and you'll see that there are 0 in reimbursement requests. Well, I want to assure you that we have already uploaded the reimbursement requests to the Omega system from July through October, and then November's should be completed this week. However, we are waiting for VDOE to allocate the budget before we can actually submit it for request. So we are all loaded on our end. We just can't push the submit button until the budgets are there, and we're waiting for VDOE to do that. But we are, I've put a system in place so that these grant reimbursements are done monthly.
I think this chart or table, whatever you want to call it, it tells a big story because it really emphasizes that the budget as a whole is not very simple, because you've got all these other sources of revenue that are plugged in, paying for salaries and a whole slew of things. And it's hard to chase a dollar from front to end. So I appreciate you putting that together.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Any questions on the financials? I have a couple more highlights to. Okay.
Go ahead.
So I'm happy to report that the annual audit for fiscal year 24 is complete. I believe it's being presented to the Board of Supervisors as we speak. I'm very pleased to say that there were no financial statement findings.
Say that again.
There were 0 financial statement findings. Thank you. However, there was 1 repeat finding for child nutrition. Specifically, the process that has been, or the process was kind of lacking in the way that we approved or denied free and reduced meal applications. So with the 23 audit not being presented to the school board until January of 24, we didn't get the first 6 months of this fiscal year, we didn't have time to rectify that of the fiscal year 24. So likely that is why, well, I don't say likely, that is why the auditors felt compelled to note this as a repeat finding. However, I can assure you that Child Nutrition has put an action plan in place. They have an actual written procedure to make sure that this isn't a reoccurrence for this year's audit.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Absolutely, sir.
We have asked staff from our child nutrition department to be here in the event that you had questions, but I would, at the risk of being redundant, want to, as you stated, acknowledge the hard work of our finance department, mainly our CFO, our new CFO, relatively new now, I guess, Ms. DeVary, and all that they've done. We all know where we were last year, this time, and to have an audit finding for finance that's clean with no audit findings is quite an accomplishment. So kudos to you, Ms. DeVary, and your staff. Again, Dr. Coleman, Ms. Couch, Mr. Ruffin, if there are any questions, they are available to share with you where we are relative to the child nutrition audit and the work that we're doing to mitigate some of those issues, as Mr. DeVary stated.
Surely give you the floor if you just want to talk it through.
Good evening. Thank you, Ms. DeVera. You gave a great explanation. I will say that was part of the FPAR finding last year as well, that was one of the citations was the applications, the free and reduced applications, and the incorrect monitoring of that. There is a procedure that was put in place before I arrived. Mr. Ruffin's done a wonderful job with that, and they are now checking. We have 2 people. It's a checks and balance system for every application that comes through. It's checked by our administrative assistant, and then Mr. Ruffin goes behind that and checks that as well. And that will be part of our FPAR again this year, where they will look at all that information as well, and we have all that information gathered. And I just returned this evening from a 4-day meeting in Richmond where I learned more about FPAR and about these applications, and so we are ready for our audit in February.
I'd say you all need to be commended because you two are digging out of a big hole, and you're brand new in the chair, Mrs. Couch. So kudos to you, Mr. Ruffin. Despite the audit findings, at the end of the day, you've got to get 12 months, and so that opportunity wasn't there. So you're doing the best you can.
Thank you.
I would say to Dr. Kramer, and we spoke about this once offline, perhaps after the first of the year, at a time appropriate, we could revisit that financial action plan, kind of go through it, check off what's been done, perhaps annotate what you folks have added or mitigated for corrective actions, and just make sure it's up to date.
Absolutely. If I may, Chair, you all know this well, board members, and certainly our staff does as well. Last year this time, we had a contractor providing some of these supports. So one of the benefits of bringing child nutrition back in-house with our staff, we can better monitor as opposed to having this outsourced. So I think that's helping tremendously as well.
We are requesting that the auditor just make a presentation to you in January regarding our audit, and you can pose any questions to them if you will. The other thing I wanted to note is, if you recall, we did return to the county $112,255. Now that the audit is complete, unless you have any objections, I was going to prepare a resolution for you for January requesting that those funds be reappropriated to us and to be put into the textbook fund.
Those were excess funds due to savings on the food nutrition program.
No, this is just in your overall, in the general operating budget, how we returned county funds to them.
So recall that was the surplus after satisfying the deficit of what it was $345,000. There was a surplus of $112,000, and normally school divisions ask for those. They're often referred to as reversionary funds to come back to the district, given that we were fiscally responsible.
I'd say present it. Any comments? Thank you. Okay. Ms. Couch, before you go, I asked Hudson yesterday, because he always tells me every day, I ask him, what did you get for lunch, son? And he had chicken nuggets. And I said, are the chicken nuggets at school as good as Chick-fil-A? And without pause, the boy said, no, Dad, that's not even a question. And so if he comes up to you next time you're over there and he tells you, because I challenged him to tell you that you got to make your chicken nuggets equivalent to Chick-fil-A.
I will tell you, you need to come try the chicken sandwich. The chicken sandwich is pretty good, too. That's one of my favorites.
I haven't made a PB&J for that boy in, goodness, 2 months.
Awesome.
So
awesome.
Y'all
Keep
are doing
eating.
great things over there.
Thank you.
Anything else for finances?
The next item is the school activity funds audit. I believe you were provided a copy. There were some findings in the school activity audit. It starts on page 21 if you want to turn to that. I believe most of these findings indicate that best practices weren't followed. There were similar findings to this in fiscal year 23, And this kind of signifies to me that training is certainly needed. I've spoken with each of the principals and bookkeepers for the schools that did have findings, and we reviewed their individual findings, and they have sent me an action plan noting what they are going to do different in order to rectify this going forward. I'm also in the process of reviewing our school activity fund manual that we have, and I will be making some suggested changes to it. I hope to provide a training to the staff certainly by the end of this fiscal year. And I also learned quite a few best practices at Norfolk Public Schools with regards to school activity funds, so I plan to be implementing some of those here.
Any major challenges or head hurters you see?
No, sir. I think it's a matter of training, following best practices. Most things, an auditor always wants to see is just documentation, proper documentation. We all make errors. So just reinforcing that, giving them examples of how they can make sure that their files are complete.
Mr. Marsh, I've uploaded the audit to board docs just now.
Thank you. I was going to ask you if you could do that.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, in our discussion, Mr. Very, in my discussion, there's nothing egregious, but as she stated, following best practices is important, and she will be providing training for the bookkeepers in the schools so that we can ensure that we do not replicate some of the mistakes that were made.
I think give us a chance to digest this. We'll take this with us, and if anybody's got any questions moving forward, re-engage later. Is the board good with that for the sake of time? Yeah. So we'll chew on this and look it over. And
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just again, this has been posted on board docs if anybody wants to see it. Next, Dr. Coleman.
Good afternoon, Board Chair, members of the school board, Dr. Kramer. Operations update. I want to first start off talking about something that we have discussed several times over the last year to 2 years at this meeting here. Is a discussion on options and a plan to address the drainage issues, sinkholes along Church Street, so the Windsor sinkholes once again. We had a meeting on December 10th, 9 a.m. We had Mr. Marsh was there, Dr. Kramer, of course, Mr. Greg Roberts, Transportation Coordinator of Wight County, Mayor of Windsor, Mr. Stubbs, Mayor Stubbs, myself, Mr. George Bowman, the Assistant Resident Administrator of Franklin Residency for VDOT, and of course, Mr. Collick wanted to be there, but at the time he was at the Carsville Fire Department volunteering, so he couldn't be there. It was a very interesting meeting. We talked about a lot of different things. We're going to make sure that I try to simplify this for you so that we get the synopsis of exactly what occurred at the meeting. One thing we found out was another history lesson of the drainage lines at Windsor. In front of you, what you see is the blueprints that VDOT was using. The orange line that you see around it is the original blueprints of where the drainage was supposed to be. The dotted lines that you see, right area on here, this area right here, this is where the lines are actually located at. So in the original design for the drainage lines, the lines were supposed to be adjacent to Church Street. But the blueprints in the original design was never followed by the engineers. So the drainage lines was placed on the school's property. So this entire time, when we're looking for the drainage lines adjacent to Church Street, they were actually located on the property of Windsor High School. That's why several months ago, when we had discussions with VDOT, they were stating over and over again, this is your property and you have to deal with this, based off the fact that the blueprints pointed out that the drainage lines were on the property. But we have found now that it wasn't supposed to be, but it is located on the property. Now, Mr. Bowman reported that a camera inspection truck was used to complete a thorough evaluation of all the affected pipes. The inspection revealed that several pipe joints have been compromised. Additionally, it was discovered that certain design elements originally specified in the school's construction plan was altered, and that's what we're talking about right now. Now, the infrastructure intended to be placed on the side of the sidewalk closest to the school was instead installed on the road Church Street, well, the opposite. Now, given these findings, Mr. Bowman expressed urgency in addressing the issue without further delay. One thing that Mr. Marsh and Dr. Kramer can agree with is Mr. Bowman was extremely helpful during this meeting, and he wanted to actually move forward as soon as possible to start to fix this issue because he knew it was going on for so long. He proposed moving forward with repairs and requested exploring potential avenues for assistance, as funding for this project is not included in the current VDOT budget for this fiscal year. All right, what needs to occur next to finish off the Windsor sinkhole project? Pipe restoration of 2 reinforced concrete pipes, one measuring 30 inches in diameter, 725 feet in length, the second measuring 12 inches in diameter and 525 in length. And of course, it's on Church Street in Windsor. Now, VDOT recommendation is to line the pipe with a seamless liner between manholes and rehabilitate the manholes. To support this effort, To support this effort, I recommend that the school board consider incorporating necessary funding to assist in the completion of the project. Alternatively, the board may wish to initiate a separate discussion with the county's Board of Supervisors to secure financial assistance for this critical infrastructure project because, of course, it was not budgeted. That's the summary. Are there any questions concerning Windsor High School sinkholes and the meeting from Monday, last week?
Doc Coleman, if you don't mind, and you, if I say something wrong, jump in and correct me. But I guess just to kind of wrap it up, in my mind, you gave us the details. So for the board and the listening audience, you specifically have been battling this issue for what, 2 years now?
2.5 years.
Started out with you tried to file an insurance claim and that was denied. It's another story in and of itself. It took Mr. Bowman to get involved, and we called the meeting, and I think it's worth mentioning that it was a very good and a very positive meeting.
Yes, it was.
Mr. Bowman said a couple of things that caught my attention. He said, if I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And if I can't, I'll tell you I can't do it. I won't sugarcoat. His words, not mine. And he said something to the effect of, he's working to build a better relationship between the county, the schools, and VDOT. And for me personally, that carried a lot of weight. And when he said the word transparency, my eyes peaked up. I like the way the man operates and the way he thinks.
Right.
He said that VDOT has already spent $22,000 to date to hire a vacuum truck, run a robot down the pipe, put dye in there, and to pour a temporary fill around some of those holes. Bottom line, they've already dropped $22K. The schools have paid our part over the years. I know you guys bought some steel plates
Absolutely.
a few months back. But he also said that VDOT's going to fix this. He says he's going to fix it because it's the right thing to do. And I agree with that. And in my mind, a tax dollar is a tax dollar. I really don't care whose pot of money it's coming out of. It's a tax dollar.
Right.
It's on VDOT's right-of-way, and he goes, it's the right thing to do. We're going to fix it. And I made sure, and you gentlemen echoed it, the schools do not have a standby contingency fund for this sort of stuff.
Not at all.
For us to engage in this, we would have to go to the county and ask for money. This is an unbudgeted expense. So his request, and he wasn't so blunt with it, but he asked if we would consider assisting in this. And in my mind, because the plans say that the drainage was supposed to be constructed on the schools right away, but for whatever the reason, in 1994, they didn't follow the plans. They
did not.
Seemingly were not installed correctly.
Correct.
We're sitting here in 2024 looking at an issue that never should have come to be.
Right.
So what I present to the board is a conversation, discussion, and consideration as to whether or not we can look to assist VDOT in making this repair. Their proposal, and I shouldn't say it's a proposal, it sounds to me like they're going to make it happen come January, February, and he's looking at approximately $200,000
Yes.
to sleeve these pipes and fix the issue. And oh, by the way, while they're at it, they're going to do the opposite side of Church Street for the same reasons. That's not a part of that $200,000. So just to repair what's in front of the schools is about $200,000. So my proposal and suggestion for discussion is to ask superintendent to look at our funds as we get closer to the end of the year. If we have anything left over, any sort of surplus, look at it, weigh our needs, and see if there's anything we can do to assist. I think perhaps a show of good faith on behalf of the schools would be beneficial in the long run. And I think it's probably worth pointing out that Mr. Bowman made it very clear that, separate topic, we've looked for crosswalks and a few pedestrian safety things around schools, and he made it very clear that he is very much willing and able to assist the schools in processing and applying for grants to help us get some of those things accomplished.
Right.
So I think in the spirit of forging a positive relationship, it's worthy of discussion. And I'll stop there and turn it over to you fine folks for any thoughts or comments.
So just to make sure I'm understanding everything correctly here, the original construction of the piping, it was placed in the incorrect location. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And that was, what year was that?
94.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you could go back to that slide, Doc, with yeah, so the dotted line there, that's actually where the pipe was planned to be. And the orange line is where it is.
Right.
And the sidewalk, and it's kind of difficult to see, but the sidewalk's in the middle there.
Okay.
So had it been constructed as originally planned, this would absolutely be a school responsibility.
That is correct.
But because they contradicted the plans for whatever the reason, it ended up on VDOT's easement. When I say VDOT's easement, I mean the street. In the town of Windsor, Windsor doesn't own the streets. VDOT owns the streets.
Right.
So had it been placed appropriately, it would have definitely been our
100%.
cost to eat.
100%. We'd have been sitting here in a completely different scenario trying to figure out how to fix this.
Was this our contractors or their contractors that messed this up?
Who knows? I don't know. I wouldn't even know how to start to look that up.
Right.
I'm not saying it can't be done. I just don't know.
I've got a question for Ms. DeVere. Based on these figures, and I don't want a concrete answer right now because I'm going to ask you to project all the way to the end of the school year.
Okay.
Given the figure that I'm looking at right here, $205,410, if we were to, per se, take that funding right now and dedicate it to the repair of the piping, how would that affect us in the long run for the end of year budget?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we have a potential for a severe shortfall with the health insurance fund.
That's why I'm asking.
Yes. So I would not recommend it at this time, but certainly we can, kind of keep it on our one-time things that perhaps we can do this year. But we need to get further along in the fiscal year to determine that.
Okay, thank you.
I think you raise a good point, Mr. Wooster, and I agree. I think to make any sort of commitment at this point would be foolish.
And if I may, Mr. Chair,
Yes,
the
sir.
VDOT representative, Mr. Bowman, is not asking that we contribute the entire amount. He's asking that we, in some way, help defray the cost by contributing something. But I do agree as well. I don't think we're in a position to be able to contribute anything at this time. And we did agree, Chair, Dr. Coleman and I, that we would have a conversation with our colleagues at the county government regarding this request as well. And the mayor was there from Windsor. So the discussion was about how can we all contribute, again, to help defray that cost.
Yeah, yes, and I think Mayor Stubbs was going to have a similar conversation with the Windsor Town Council as we're having tonight. And certainly can't predict how that conversation will come, but I think that was the end result.
Yeah, I definitely feel this warrants more conversation with more bodies involved.
Okay, then I think the spirit and intent of this agenda item is met.
Right.
We've talked it through. I mean, I've been banging the drum about the Windsor sinkholes for a long time. So
Right.
Everybody's on the same sheet of music, and we'll march forward smartly.
All right.
Am I missing anything?
Nope, I think we covered everything. We talked about the issues and ways to move forward, so.
Thanks, Doc.
No problem. Next, Chair, I want to just discuss with you, just to show that the departmental meetings for operations department, nursing, transportation, mechanics, child nutrition, technology, they occur on a regular basis. We try to do one in the fall and one in the spring. Now, these meetings allow me to gain an unfiltered version of what's going on with boots on the ground, individuals that are doing the work every single day without their direct supervisor there. And I just sit back and we talk about the procedures, workflow, communication, collaboration, resource allocation within the department and their thoughts on it. So just giving you an overall look at getting all of the voices from all of the departments and giving them a voice to speak. So this is just one picture of a departmental meeting, and that is the nurses doing outstanding work there. Just informational. All right, any questions on that? All right. Next is the HVAC project update. Of course, we're receiving bids on December 19th, and of course, we anticipate receiving permit approval January 25th. Now, the anticipated notice to proceed, we're looking at getting that on February 5th. And of course, by March 5th, the anticipated shop drawings. After that, we'll be moving forward with the ordering of the HVAC devices because everything has to be customized and ordered from probably overseas to be delivered. So we're moving right ahead. Everything is falling right in place with the HVAC project update. Around March or April, that's when we'll start the timeline to completion. So you'll start seeing that monthly for a timeline to completion with the Carrollton HVAC project. Any questions?
Everything's on track. Short story.
Everything's on track.
You happy?
I'm happy at this time.
Okay. If you're happy, I'm happy with this.
And lastly, the school administration office. Just an update. Another update will be coming in February. I just want to let everyone know that the new address is going to be 9307 Old Stage Highway. That will be the new address for central office. Also, main desk number, the same. I've been asked several times by several individuals in the community, are all the numbers changing, different things of that nature? No, that's the same. That is actually the floor plan for new school board office. And I want to reiterate, the primary purpose for the school administration office in the beginning was the warehouse, a 2,000 square foot warehouse, climate controlled and secured, something that this division has never had. That was the primary purpose. And with this, the move-in will return 3.5 classrooms to Smithfield High School. We incur a professional development space, secured file storage for the first time, a centralized division administration with everyone under the same roof, division staff training rooms, and then confidential meeting rooms. So all of this is coming out of this initiative with a overall price tag where we're still working through the details of the final payments and different things from the school construction grant. But after talking to the architect and understanding that it's going to be, if we tried to build this building today, it would be close to $500 a square foot. And that would, without the warehouse, we're looking at a 20,000 square foot building. So you know the millions and the millions that we're looking at to build a building of this nature and with all of the benefits that it comes along with.
We talked about this the other day.
Yes.
$500 a square foot for a new office space.
Yes. That is the...
We're looking at somewhere in the ballpark. Had we built this building from the ground up, $11 million.
It's about $11 million.
How much did it cost us?
At this time, let's just say between 1.4 and let's say 1.4 and about 800,000. Right now, still a couple of things in play as to how we're going to work everything else out. But the final amounts will be given.
So on the high end, we're looking at 1.8 million. That's what we spent.
No, on the high end, it's probably going to be 1.4 million.
1.4 million on the high end, and those are grant funds.
All of those are grant funds. There's been no local money spent on central office at this time.
And I think that's huge. So I think that's the big part. Although it's costing us 1.4 for the entire build-out renovation, it's costing this county's taxpayers $0 out of local taxpayer dollars in this county.
It's huge.
It is.
It's huge. We'll go back here. I think it was shortly after I got up on the board when you folks pitched this project. You told me, and I'll roll the tapes just to confirm it, that you were going to do this for under $2 million.
Under $2 million.
And I told you you were going to break $2 million. So I hope you can prove me wrong.
The printout will show everything.
Yeah, it sure will.
Well, we're going to be moving in pretty soon, so there's not a ton left to be done. So I think we will meet that goal.
You don't give yourself enough credit, sir. This guy's, for those watching and listening, Dr. Coleman has a knack for getting stuff done. He's shaking and moving over there. So kudos to you. This is your project. And even though it's not done, you deserve a big round of applause. So thank you.
Thank you.
And if you haven't been over there yet, go check it out. Was it Tuesday I went over there?
It was Tuesday, sir.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Anybody else?
And That is it.
And we welcome any other board members. If you're available, you actually happen to be available. You were at a meeting, and Mr. Cunningham visited. He was at the Hardy ribbon cutting ceremony, which was held at Hardy. So he was able to visit as well. So Ms. Perkins, Vice Chair Wooster. You're already scheduled. Very good. Mr. Vice Chair Wooster, let us know when you'd like to get over as well, sir. Already scheduled. Very good. You don't need me.
What else you got, Doc?
That is it.
Excellent. To you, sir.
All right. Very good, Mr. Chair.
Oh, wait.
Sure.
Let's take a 5-minute recess.
All right. We can do that.
All right, we're back in session. Over to you, Doc.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chair. All right, we'll start with the November Aisle Awards, as we always do. And let's start with upper left. We have our very own Mr. Calvin Kelly, the beloved Calvin Kelly, our longtime courier, received the Inspire Aisle Award. Bottom left, Nurse Supervisor Tara Abbey. Congratulations, Nurse Abbey. Top right, the Succeed Aisle Award was presented to the child nutrition team for all that they are doing, as we mentioned earlier, to make improvements in that area. And bottom right, a local restaurant establishment who does a lot for our schools in the Windsor community, El Rodeo, received the Empower Aisle Award. And accompanying me at that presentation, along with our staff, was Chairman Marsh, and board member Collick joined us to present that award to El Rodeo. So congratulations to all of our November Aisle Award recipients. That's right. Thank you. Next, we had the greenhouse, but Ms. Rogers and Outland did such an outstanding job, so there's little left for me to say there. A huge thank you to AES, a large global Fortune 500 company, energy company based out of Northern Virginia, and they're doing work in our area as well, made that very generous donation, so thank you to AES. Our annual report, and you see it there, the Isle of Wight County Schools annual report, Reflections as it's titled, has been published and is being mailed out to all of our families. Reflections is an account of the growth and accomplishments of the previous school year, published by our communications department. So thank you, Mrs. Briggs and Mr. Elliott. A round of applause. Thank you for leading that. Appreciate you, Mrs. Briggs and Mr. Elliott. A copy has been provided for each board member. Families should receive theirs sometime next week, and additional copies will be available at schools. And our new school administration office and the progress there, won't belabor that too much. Dr. Coleman mentioned this earlier. As was stated, we are in the final stages of completing our new school administration building, which is the repurposing of the old Hardy Elementary School. We're very excited, and as Chair Marsh stated, we are under budget, and again, we are building this or renovating this space at no cost to our local government. Our talented coordinator for education, technologies, and communications captured me for a few minutes doing a little bit of drywall. Given that my superintendent's update is fairly brief this month due to the Thanksgiving break, I will ask that we share a brief video clip of me. So if you would, Mr. Cooprider, share that at this moment. We are finishing up our new central office. The contractors allowed me to demonstrate my skills. So as you see here, I am taping the seam. So this is one of the first steps after you hang the sheetrock, and that is what we're doing now.
No, there's nothing wrong with a hard hat and a hammer. Kind of glue that sticks this world together.
Worked in my family's construction company doing drywall. We did large commercial projects in the Washington, D.C. area. It's important for people to see that you can do both. You can have a trade and you can go to college. You can do either or you can do both, as demonstrated here. So I had a chance to work in the construction industry for a number of years before going actually into education, and it's something I still enjoy doing to this day.
Hands of steel and cradle of the promised land. God bless the working man. The working man.
So, Mr. Elliott, a round of applause, please. Lead that, Mrs. Sullivan. Thank you kindly. So, yes, I was showing off a little bit because Dr. Coleman and Mr. John Smith didn't believe that I could do this work. But more importantly, I think it's important that our students see that you don't have to do one or the other. You don't have to go to college. You can go to college if you want. You can go into the military. You can get a trade. And as I said, in my case, fortunately, I'm able to do both. So thank you, Mr. Elliott. You made me look good. My new theme song is that Hard Hat and Hammer by Alan Jackson. How did I forget that? That's my new theme song, Alan Jackson. That's right. Thank you for having my back there, Mr. Chair. That concludes my superintendent's update.
Thanks, Doc. Appreciate that. All right. I suspect that's going to come back and haunt you later on. Just, yeah. All right. Let's see. 18.1 personnel report. Action item.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the personnel report as presented, a copy of which can be obtained from the school board clerk.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. 19.1 consent agenda. Action item.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the consent agenda as attached and presented.
Second.
Motion and a second. I think we need to do a little better on this. I'm going to rattle off the donations for this month. Carrollton Elementary School received a donation from a Mr. David Wallace for $1,000 for a mascot costume. Hardy Elementary received Thanksgiving meals for families from the Smithfield Christian Church. Mr. and Mrs. Causey donated grocery store gift cards. The Harvest Fellowship Baptist Church gave Thanksgiving meals for custodians and cafeteria workers. And Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated donated children's underclothes and food. And then Windsor High School received the following. Walker's Small Engine and Walker's Small Engine and Equipment LLC gave $100 for the wrestling program. Star Motors donated $100 for the wrestling program. Ivor Furniture gave $50 to the wrestling program. Dale's Train Station gave $200 for the wrestling program. Parham's Classic Auto, another $200 for wrestling. Lowe's, I presume from Suffolk, gave a pit grill for Scholastic Bowl. And then Windhaven Farms LLC gave steaks for the football team dinner, value of $477. Thank you to all the people and organizations that donate to Wight County Schools. Any other comments? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yay.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. Where are we at? 20.1. We have one policy for second read. I believe that's our cell phone policy. I think we've all seen this a handful of times.
I'm available if you have any questions.
I've just got one question on it. Have you or do you know of any negative feedback on this policy whatsoever?
I have not heard of any negative feedback. Ms. Getz is not here tonight. I can certainly check and see. I think our student liaisons gave an update at the last board meeting where they shared that, you know, there was some initial concern, but the majority of the students have adjusted very well. And there's just a handful that have taken longer to transition. So most of mine is more, I guess, anecdotal than data that I can provide about that.
If I may, Vice Chair Wooster, I, as superintendent, would normally hear about issues and concerns. I can tell you, I don't think I've received an email, certainly not as of late, about this. I think early on we did had a parent or two who were concerned they wanted to be in touch with their children. And in those rare cases, if there is a concern, the school addresses that. But I'll tell you, this has been overwhelmingly successful. And as Ms. Briggs stated, our students, I think, have adjusted. And certainly a policy was in place prior to, so it extended throughout the lunch and other times in the building. But I think our students have adjusted very well. It's not going to be perfect, and we don't expect that it will be. There will be some cases where students do not comply, but I think that's in the very small minority. But to your question, overall, I think this policy has been very successful.
Don't get me wrong, I fully support this policy. And Mr. Marsh, I don't remember the bill designation dealing with the enforcement of this policy.
I do.
But I've got a question on that. Should that actually pass, that would prohibit us from potentially enforcing this policy. Am I correct?
I can speak to that.
Okay, Mr. Marsh, you're going to speak to that?
I sure can. So Virginia legislators have up in the Education Committee Senate Bill 783. And by far and large, it only founds or establishes law, basically, that enforces this policy. But they've added a sentence in there that says, and I'll read it, I'll direct quote it. It says, "It expressly prohibits any student from being suspended, expelled, or removed from a class as a consequence of any violation of such policies." So to your question, sir, in the event that Virginia legislators decide to pass Senate Bill 738 as written, we would have to go back and modify our policy as written, because we would not be able to suspend, expel, or remove a classroom student if they blatantly violate the cell phone policy. So, does that answer your question?
It does. And like I said, I do support the policy. But in the event, and playing devil's advocate here, in the event that does pass, what are we going to do to actually, or what are we going to be able to do to enforce this policy?
Well, I'll tell you, if I may.
Yes.
Vice Chair Wooster, I was in a meeting with, and I will say this, I won't tell you everything that was discussed with State Superintendent Coons, and we are having discussions at that level if this does in fact pass. So I can't tell you definitively what we're going to do or not do. I don't want to speak prematurely, but will say that we are having discussions with state officials about that very legislation.
And my understanding too is that the discipline, if there's been any suspension, it's not been specific to cell phones. It's been perhaps failure to comply. So it's granted it's based on cell phones, but it's not being recorded as a cell phone violation. It's being recorded as an administrator requested the student to do something, turn their phone over, do something of that nature. They did not comply, so it's being recorded as failure to comply. I know, I'm going to turn around real quick. Ms. Sullivan, she's nodding her head. Yes, okay, yes.
Okay, that pretty much answered my question satisfactorily. I'm good.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Any others?
If there's no more questions, I'm ready to make a motion.
I appreciate you asking that question, because I think that's important for people to understand. Please make the motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the policy for second read as presented.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussions? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. And that takes us to our last action item, 20.2. So our next, obviously this is the end of the year, so we've had some communications separately and individually. I'd like to propose that we set our next regular school board meeting in conjunction with our organizational meeting on January 16th, start at 4:30 p.m.
Are you saying we're not doing the meeting on the 9th?
That's correct. We'll
Okay.
just combine them all. So the 9th of January is immediately following the stand down period, the vacation period. So that gives staff a chance to kind of recollect after 2 weeks off. We'll come in at 4:30, do an organizational meeting, knock out those requirements, and then roll right into our regular monthly meeting.
Sounds good.
Everybody good with that?
Me personally, I'd rather just go ahead, like you said, do them both on the same date, because otherwise, looking at my 2025 schedule, for me to be at both, I would have to burn 48 hours of annual leave. I'd prefer not to do that.
Doc, do you have something?
I was just going to say, as you stated, that's the week we get back, and that will allow us to have the agenda review actually on that 9th, prior to the board meeting on the 16th. Yes.
Good. All right. I'll make the motion. Board members, I move to approve the January 16th, 2025 board meeting at 4:30 p.m. and set that as a date and time for the annual organizational school board meeting, and then roll into the regular meeting at 5 p.m., January 16th.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other discussion? Madam Clerk.
Mr. Cunningham?
Yes.
Mrs. Perkins?
Yes.
Mr. Wooster?
Yes.
And Mr. Marsh?
Yes, motion passes. And Madam Clerk, could you please send out an invite before you leave
Yes, sir.
for the week? And okay, let's wrap it up. Board member comments. I'll open it up. Anybody wants to go first? Nothing? Ms. Perkins? Mr. Wooster? Gosh almighty. Okay. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to wish everybody happy holidays. Since we won't be here before in the new year, happy new year. Have a safe holiday. And hopefully all the kids out there get everything they want from Santa.
That's right. That's right.
That's all I have.
Well said, sir. Let's see. Dates slipped me by. Whatever Tuesday was, I took a day off work. I met with Dr. Coleman, as we already talked about, at central office, and we met with the VDOT reps. I left there, and I had the pleasure of meeting Smithfield Middle School's assistant principal, Yonker. Very nice lady, had nothing but good things to say about transitioning from Suffolk schools to Wight County Schools. I asked her specifically, how has your transition been, and have you gotten everything you needed to get from central office staff? And she was nothing but smile. She says it's been great. So whatever you folks are doing, you must be doing it right. And then I went over and I met Assistant Principal Speed at Windsor Elementary, and I learned that Mrs. Yonker, I don't know if I'm saying her name right, had actually recruited Mrs. Speed from Suffolk. So they came in tandem from Suffolk. Both super nice ladies, and they have nothing but nice things to say about Wight County Schools. And then I had a quick visit over at Windsor High School Tuesday morning, and I got to see the weapons detection devices in action. And I got to see staff dealing with a high school kid that just got caught with a vape. So never a dull moment over there. But that was it. Anything else? All right. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. See you next year.